Ali Velshi interviewed Sara Nelson, the Association of Flight Attendants. It's a union for flight attendants. And I tell you, there are a lot of union people that are speaking out now. The unions are on the rise again. Most Americans are supporting the unions again after there has been a concerted effort by right-wing organizations, by plutocrats, by think tanks put out like the Heritage Foundation and Cade Institute, etc. Finally, Americans are starting to wake up. And what does that mean? It actually means that they realize the reason for unions. They're starting not to believe the crap that comes out of the executives in these corporations who always get these big time raises. Whether the company is doing good or the company is doing badly, they get raises. When they are fired, they get golden parachutes with millions of dollars to leave. When the employee is poor, they just throw them to the curb. When the company is not making as much as it should, they throw them to the curb. When the company is failing because of the executives, they throw them to the curb. When the companies are doing very well because of the efficiencies, all the monies from the efficiencies go to having workers work harder. As the executives take the profits from their efficiency, people are starting to wake up. And, you know, one of the things that one has to be able to do is articulate in a manner that bread and butter person, that person that is not necessarily a scholar or whatever, understands exactly what's going on. That is the reason I really like to hear Ali Velshi talks about the union subject, as well as the Association of Flight Attendants president, Sara Nelson. She is very, very good at tying the knots together and putting it all in one piece. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Joining us now is the union leader, Sara Nelson. She's the president of the Association of Flight Attendants. Sara, you and I were just talking about this the other day, whether the White House is prepared to put a thumb on the scale on this one and how involved they'll get. There was talk that the Labor Secretary and Gene Sperling were going to go to the negotiations this week. That didn't happen. And then this. Am I making a big thing out of this, or is this a very big deal that the president is going to join the striking workers?
Well, this shouldn't be a big deal, but it is a big deal because this is unprecedented. And it is happening because this president at his core is a labor guy. He believes in labor. He believes in labor rights. But it's also really happening. The real reason this is happening is because of the workers who are taking a stand all across the country. And this strike is historic, with UAW taking on the big three automakers all at once. Never happened in history either. We're talking about a lot of firsts in history. But I've said for a long time, start in the workplace and the politics will follow. And that's what we're seeing here.
Something has happened. There's a change in tone with a lot of these labor leaders where they're coming in and saying, these are the requests we have. You might think they're outsized because they're 10 times what you ever offer us, but they're not as much as what you bosses are making. They're not as much as what the shareholders are making. And by the way, this is the moment to strike. So don't tell me to live to fight another day. This is actually when we're striking.
I want to be really clear that it's the companies that are choosing the strikes, not the other way around. And you'd see that very clearly, that workers are making their demands up front. We're very clear about what our demands are. It has gone in the wrong direction for too long, essentially since Ronald Reagan fired the air traffic controllers in 1981. And it was open season on unions and a destruction of the strike. The strike is about coming to a deal. It is not about the strike. No worker wants to go on strike. But we want to go on strike when the company is not being fair, when they are not negotiating with us fairly. And that has been going on for too long. And so what we've said right up front with our demands is what we're willing to do. That's why UPS settled. It was a credible strike threat. It was serious from the Teamsters. That's what we're going to continue to see. And the big three apparently didn't get the message.
Tim Scott, who's running for president, senator from South Carolina, because just mentioned Ronald Reagan and the air traffic controller strike. This is what he said at a campaign stop in Iowa.
Ronald Reagan gave us a great example when federal employees decided they were going to strike. He said, you strike, you're fired. Simple concept to me. To the extent that we could use that once again, absolutely.
You don't actually have to be a labor leader to understand the basic law in this country. You can't actually do what Tim Scott just said. You can't tell people if you strike, you're fired.
He's interfering with workers' rights here, and that's why the UAW filed a ULP, an unfair labor practice, against him. He doesn't have the right to do that. And he's also confusing the fact that Ronald Reagan fired the federal workers, which conceivably he was their boss. The president and the government is not the boss of the UAW workers. He's got the whole thing confused here. And especially, he's completely out of touch with the country. He is completely out of touch with where we are right now, where workers are saying we have had enough. We're going to come together no matter what, take our fair share, because this economy, as Sean Fain has been saying, has been working for the billionaires. It hasn't been working for the working class. We're going to wreck their economy, and we're going to build up our own.
After the air traffic controller strike, it was open season on unions. But take a look at some recent polling from Reuters and Ipsos for the support for the strikers amongst all Americans. For the auto workers, 58% support, 32% oppose. For the Hollywood strike, 60% support, 27% oppose. Now, that's all Americans. Let's look at this even amongst Republicans. For the auto workers, more support than oppose. 48% support, 47% oppose. And for the Hollywood strikes, it's a dead heat. So the bottom line is public support is on the side of the unions, even in matters where it will affect the public, whether it's the TV you watch or the parcels you don't get delivered or the cars you're not going to buy or that are going to cost you more, or in the case of flight attendants who strike, the flights you won't fly on. What's happened? Why has public sentiment changed so far in favor of workers?
Because the public understands that going along with the rule book that has been in place for the last 40, 50 years doesn't work. The idea that the corporate elite has said to us, you should feel lucky to have a job. The entire country is saying, no, you should feel lucky to have our work. We don't live to go to work. We go to work to live. And so this is what we're doing. We're taking a stand across the country, and people are identifying with what the auto workers are doing, with what the writers and the actors are doing, with what grocery workers did before them, teachers. This has been across every single industry because it has been about taking all of the productivity of our work, making us work harder for less. And everyone understands that. So the demands are the same. These tier demands to get rid of the tiers at the auto workers, you can see that in every single industry where a certain set of workers are treated differently than others. The jig is up. Like we know the playbook now. And the playbook of us sitting back and saying that we can only think about ourselves and stay within our own cocoon and we're going to be okay. And we can pick ourselves up by our bootstraps and do better. That ship has sailed. Okay, that narrative is gone. That is destroyed in America. And America understands that the people who are standing up for the regular Main Street person in America is the unions. When we were strong and there was shared prosperity in this country, unions were strong. And as unions have been on decline, so has the standard of living for the average American. It's time to fight back. And that's why you see the support of the strikers, because they understand that this strike is about all of us.
Sara Nelson nails it. And if we could get every union worker to speak like this, if we could get every union worker to encourage other people like this, we'll be in great shape. Sara Nelson, Ali Velshi, kudos, keep up the work, unions first.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.